Welcome to Movie's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube, and this is my 2000 Porsche 911 Cabriolet that I bought for only $6,000, making it the cheapest Porsche 911 in the country that ran and drove. Not only did it run and drive, it ran and drove beautifully and was actually in amazing shape. I bought it sight unseen at an auction in Dallas, having no idea what kind of condition it was in, whether it ran at all, and it showed up actually in pretty good shape. I say pretty good shape, but it did need a lot of work. So today we're going to go over all the things I had to do to sort out this Porsche 911, and then we're going to compare the cheapest used Porsche 911 to the cheapest brand new 2020 Porsche 911. My goodness, it's snazzy. Now I have my bill from the car wizard right here to sort this thing out, but before we dive into this, there's a lot of other money that I spent on this 911, starting with, well, the purchase itself. I bought it at auction. There's auction fees, so it's $6,000 plus $200 and something in fees. I think about $250. Furthermore, there was another $270 in shipping, so that put me at $6,500 before it even showed up to my door. The wheels that were on it before, they weren't very good looking. I think all black, it was just too much black. So I sourced these wheels. They're actually from a 997 or a late 996, just a clean silver 5-spoke wheel with Michelin tires. That cost me another $1,400. Let's just round up to $1,500. So that puts me at $8,000 into this Porsche 911 before I get into the repairs. So we have changing all the fluids, we have hood struts, we have rear door struts, we have new front suspension, sway bar links, engine mounts, and installing that rear window regulator, which was quite labor intensive, mounting the wheels, and that grand total came to $1,931.50. So that means I'm still just under $10,000 into this Porsche 911. So something like $9,931 for a very sorted, although slightly scruffy looking 911. I did spend another $200 to get it detailed, but you couldn't go too deeply into the paint because the deeper you go, the more you see black shows everything. So just don't get too close to it, but it is a very, very nice car that is very fun to drive. But the question is, should you spend $10,000 or really $20,000 on a nice sorted 996 911, or should you just lease a new one? Is it that big of a quantum leap over the last 20 years of water-cooled Porsches that these are completely obsolete? And in some ways, yes. In a lot of ways, yes, but in some ways, not really. The first thing that strikes me when I line these two cars up right next to each other is how much bigger the new 992 Porsche 911 looks compared to the old 996. And that's funny because when I had an 84 Porsche 911 Carrera, this thing looked giant compared to that old Porsche of more than 30 years ago. So Porsches keep getting bigger and bigger. The other thing that strikes me at first glance is Porsche really wanted to overcompensate, here I am using that word again, for the runny egg headlights. And they've designed these beautiful jewelry looking things. And of course, they're back to round with the new 992. They were back to round with the last two generations before this as well. But look how blingy these headlights are compared to these much maligned headlights. Now, the old school Porsche purist thinks the 911 died with this model right here when they made it water-cooled, when they made it modern, and I couldn't disagree more. This is a very simple, pure car, and when you look inside, you can see how simple and how true to the Porsche heritage it is. You can see the tachometer in the middle, just like a sports car, just like all Porsches before it, and everything in here is just very simple, very analog. Despite being a much more advanced car than the outgoing generation before it, it is a super simple car. And while it is pretty nice materials-wise, it is a product of the 90s and the 2000s, so there is a lot of kind of cheaper looking hard plastics in here. Some of it's not aging very well, some of it's somewhat broken, but it's okay. It's not a C5 Corvette. It is much nicer quality-wise than that. And when you get away from the front, away from those headlights that people love to hate on, and just look at the shape of it, it is very true to the classic heritage of the 911. It is that bathtub kind of shape. It looks really cool. Same with the 992. Shape-wise, they are very, very close to the same. But the generic shape is pretty much all that these two cars really have in common. There's there's not much else other than the 911 badge. So while the 996 is a very simple analog car, this new 2020 certainly is not. The door handles will greet you with the key. They are happy to see you. They will pop in and out as you unlock and lock the door, just like a Tesla. So yeah, saw the key earlier. It actually flashes too with the car in the security system. It's shaped like a Porsche 911. Porsche started doing that way back with the Cayenne. I had a Cayenne Turbo in 2004 that had a key that was kind of shaped like it, as opposed to these old traditional keys. I don't know why I'm making this comparison, but you still turn the knob on the left side just like all classic 911s. And then you are greeted with the future. My goodness. I have no idea how all this works. So the gauges, despite being modern and techy and digital, are actually very true to the older 911s, with the tachometer in the middle and the two circular dials on the left and right. And it does actually seem pretty intuitive for this Neanderthal, and what I really like about it is how tactile all the buttons are. Despite it having all this technological wizardry, it still has very nice feeling buttons, as opposed to the old Porsche where it's just a lot of old plastic. One thing I can say I don't like though about all this interface is the shift knob. In my old Porsche, you have a nice, very girthy gear shifter that you can grab and handle, and this one, it's so small, no man would be proud to have this as their shifter. But anyway, I am overall very impressed with this interior. It does pay tribute to the older Porsches, but it's kind of a nice old meets new. It has all the latest and greatest technology that anybody would want in their new car, and I'm not the kind of guy to knock the PDK transmission. I know they got a lot of flack for not offering a manual transmission right off the bat. I think they are now. But the PDKs that I've driven have all been fantastic and fun, and this one with 380 horsepower, well, I'm sure it's going to perform a lot better than my old Porsche 911 over there with 290 something horsepower, or who knows how much left with 175,000 miles on it. So let's go take a look at the engine of this thing. So both cars have deployable rear spoilers. They pop up when the Porsche thinks it needs it, and also when you just want to do it yourself, pushing buttons and peacock. So let's look at that's popping the hood, and there's no engine to see, just a couple of fans and some places to add fluids. So they've gone all Boxster and Cayman on the 911 now to where you can't even look at your engine anymore. I'm not so sure about that. But the rear is very, very pretty. I love the light bar treatment. I love that light bars have made a comeback. It is just a beautiful car, but I guess you can't look underneath the skin. Huh. My goodness, I can't get over just how big this thing is. It's so huge proportions-wise. Even the wheels, it's hard to believe from the factory a Porsche now has 20 inches on the front and 21 inches in the rear, and they can get even bigger than that. Really, you could probably fit several inches more in that wheel well versus, well, 17 or 18 inches. But it's not the size that matters, it's how it uses it. So I guess I'll take you out in the cheapest new Porsche 911 first, and then we'll go back to this rinky-dink old thing. So the first thing that struck me was, despite this thing being way, way bigger than its predecessor, the interior feels, well, exactly the same size. I don't feel like I'm uncomfortably cramped, but you would think if they had all these inches to the 911 over the years, they could find some more rear legroom, because the rear seats, they are just as unusable as they are in a 20-year-older Porsche 911. Basically, they're made for kids, but one thing, despite this being a bigger car, they've tightened up the steering rack a lot to where this thing feels a lot more nimble, and of course, it's way faster. Use the PDK to shift manually. Off we go! That feels just like my old 911 Turbo from 2002, and really it should, because this thing, well, has a turbo. They don't call it a Porsche 911 Turbo, even though it is a turbocharged engine. Porsche is very confused with what turbo means. Turbo is a brand to them, a badge to them. Even if a car doesn't have a turbo like a Taycan, they put a turbo badge on it if it's faster. So this is a 911 Turbo, non-turbo. Now, I am not a manual snob by any means. I love a manual transmission, But love a good automatic too, and this PDK is absolutely fantastic. It shifts faster than any human could possibly ever shift. Oh, okay, slow down a little bit. And it is very quiet, smooth, comfortable. The technology, I have no idea how any of it works, but it looks like I have some kind of lane keep assist system, and the infotainment, it's all there. I assume it all works. And the air-conditioned seats I have on right now, they must be the strongest air-conditioned seats I've ever felt. You can actually hear the fan. Man, it's blown hard. Oh, it's nice. So yeah, pretty amazing for a base model car to be that fast, have lightning quick shifts, and to be, well, more or less bulletproof. Super impressive with a modern car, although it does lack some of the analog charm of the 911s of old, which we shall hop in now. All right, let's go. It's a lot slower. It's way slower, but it's still fun. I was watching a video Magnus Walker made not too long ago. He had bought a 996 Porsche just like this one, and he could buy any Porsche that he wanted. He's known for his air-cooled Outlaw builds, but of all the 996s, of all of his first water-cooled Porsches that he could personally own, he chose one just like this, except a coupe. He didn't want a GT2 or GT3 in turbo. He wanted this just because of the pure analog fun that the base 996 911 Carrera is. And he's absolutely right. Now, the steering is definitely not as sharp. And like I said, it's slow. There's also an alarming clunk coming from the front right suspension, which I thought all the suspension stuff was fixed, so but it's still, this is so much fun. Man, I love this thing. I'm also missing the air-conditioned seats in the other one. Well, I certainly have a few more bugs to work out on this $6,000 911 that's now almost $10,000 because I've spent tons of money sorting it out, and that's just the reality of buying an old Porsche like this. You're going to keep throwing money at it to keep it running. It's going to feel like a car payment. But for under $10,000, a car that offers this old school Porsche analog experience, it can't be beat. And that's something that newer cars just can't match because they're so much faster. And I don't think Porsche is trying to harken back to the old 911 that much with what they're offering here, other than the generic shape. It seems like what they did here was try and build the best sports car possible, and they nailed it. This is probably the best sports car money can buy right now, even comparing it to Ferraris or Lamborghinis that are 2 or 3 times its price. It is just an incredible value for what it is, and almost invincible. Porsche has worked out most of their kinks as far as I know, unlike a lot of other brands. You don't have to worry about IMS bearings or cylinder scoring or timing chain problems with these newer Porsches, and that PDK gearbox is known to be pretty much indestructible. You can take this thing and beat on it over and over again on the track and really not have to worry. As opposed to this, you take it out and do a track day, you're going to be staring at your gauges, gritting your teeth. You're going to be terrified. So even though I'm a hoopty guy, I can certainly see the appeal of this car, even though 3 months of payments would pay for this entire 911. But man, is it cool. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Walser Porsche of Wichita, for letting me experience what I'm missing. I'm missing out on a lot.